Hello, recording. Hello, Discord. We are here for the Think Python Book Club going over Chapter 1, The Way of the Program. And I'm going to have two goals for this meeting. One is for me to talk through and give my perspective on some of the key ideas from the chapter. And for that purpose, I wrote an outline of the chapter, mostly focusing on the key vocabulary or key terms that are in bold in the book. But I'd also like to hear from Didgeridoo in the audience what you thought of the book, and if there were any points in it, not the book, but the chapter, and if there were any points in the chapter that weren't clear to you. So I'm going to look at the requests section, and I'm going to toggle open the prelude of the chapter, where Alan Downey talks about thinking like a computer scientist and the importance of problem solving and how programming is a means to an end. And with that, I'd like to invite Didgeridoo to click the request to speak button. Or maybe you'd, Didgeridoo said, I think this chapter was nice and straightforward. No problems, I don't think. Okay, if you don't have any problems to ask about, you don't have to come up. I don't really want to monologue the whole time, but might come up a bit later, says Didgeridoo. Okay, fine. What is a program? I like this section of the book. I like this section of the chapter where he defines a program and says that there are a few basic instructions that make up a whole complicated program. And those instructions are input, output, math, as in simple arithmetic, conditional execution, and repetition. And his claim, which is sort of a bold claim, is that that's just about all. That's basically all there is to it. And all the complicated things that come out of computers are simply a structure built upon these simple instructions. So that's that section. And I can think about, for the Discord bot, there's an input, a user types something into Discord. That's one example of input with that program. For output, the bot might send a message back or might schedule a server event. Math, the program, the Discord bot might compare dates by subtracting two different timestamps and seeing how far apart they are. Conditional execution, the bot might only schedule an event if it's close enough to the current date. And repetition is that spelled wrong? I hope not. That's okay. Repetition is that it's doing these things over and over again, but with certain variations. That's enough about what is a program. For running Python, one potential difficulty with Python is that you may have to install it on your computer. One way to get around that is to use the excellent service Python Anywhere, which is available online for free with some limitations, but anything you would want to do for this book, you could do for free. There is a Python 2 and a Python 3 version. These days, Python 3 is where it's at, so I won't even talk much about Python 2. The Python interpreter is the program that interprets Python code and runs it. A prompt is where you type in your code, and 1 + 1 is a simple example of the first line of code that you could perhaps run in Python once you get to Python Anywhere. Then there's the first program with Hello World and an example of a print statement. Not a lot to say here, so I'll just breeze on. Arithmetic operators, he talks about the concept of operators as a symbol that's available in Python that does a certain action or operation and this does it on, and we'll get into the next section, does an operation on values and types. And I forget his definition of a value, so I'll just skim past that, but this section talks about types, including the integer type, the floating point number type, and the string type. And then in this second to last subsection of the chapter, there's a discussion of formal and natural languages, and talking about how we parse languages in English, and how natural languages tend to have ambiguity and redundancy, and they have metaphor, so they're not always taken literally. And then he talks about this interesting continuum from poetry, which is very, I'm gonna say wishy-washy, even though that's a really lame way of describing poetry. But there's a lot of metaphor, there's a lot of suggestion, there's a lot of things not being literal said in a literal way. And prose is more literal and is more, I guess, more defined. Whereas programs are like, have you seen the XKCD of the sciences organized by purity, and the mathematician is like way over on the other side? So if poetry is here and prose is here, then programs are like maybe way over that way. Finally, debugging. This is one of the features of this book that I really like. Once you learn about a new technique in Python, you learn in that same chapter things that can go wrong and how to fix those things. And those things that go wrong are called bugs, and debugging is the process of taking away those bugs. There's a glossary, which I didn't take time to copy down, which is somewhat a repetition of terms from the book, but also a few additional terms. And then there are the exercises, which I said we would go through together, but first I want to check in the text or the hand raises if anyone has something to say about what I've gone through so far. Not all good, or no comma, all good. Okay, that's an important comma. Okay, let me... Got there in the end. Yep, yes you did. I'm gonna go back to Think Python in a, oops, not PDF. I want HTML. That's the version, that's the type I want. So it's glitched too much. Oh, this version of the book has figures that I didn't see on the other page. That's interesting. Was I reading a different version of... Oh, I was reading a different version of... I do have a different version of the book. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place here. Huh, that's interesting. That's a different version of the book. So, exercises. Would you like to see me go through the exercises? I want some feedback, some validation of whether I should open for discussion, work through the exercise, play through the exercises, or just call it an end to the meeting. That's good. Kaddish says go for it. Okay, so I will go for it. Scroll down to the exercises section of here, and what I'm going to do now is create a new account on Python Anywhere so people can see that process if they haven't done it before. Might be like welcoming to see that happen. Create a beginner account. Username is going to be, can I do 19-bit? And email is eric@19bit.net. And I'm going to hide my screen just for a second, because just in case it decides to show a password. Sure enough, it did show the password, but now it's not showing it. Alibaba says, is the resolution of the screen low, or is it just me? Kaddish says, same for me. So unfortunately, Discord seems to have low res. You know what? Maybe I should be... I'm going to end the tour. Alibaba says, looks like roughly 240 to 320p. Ouch, that is a really low resolution. Well, let's just zoom in stupidly big. I think that's, it's probably because of the fact. Let me try an alternate approach. Except that it's not. Next time I'll do this differently. Probably Discord is giving you a pretty weak webcam feed. But hopefully that's enough. So anyway, consoles, I'll start a new Python 3.10. Why not? We're back to pretty smaller. Let's make it bigger. Okay, the instructions were, it is a good idea to read this book in front of a computer so you can try out the examples as you go. Alibaba says, it is readable now that it is big, all good. Whenever you are experimenting with a new feature, you should try to make mistakes. For example, in the Hello World program, what happens if you leave out one of the quotation marks? So the Hello World program, if I remember, was print, quote, hello, comma, world, exclamation point, and parenthesis. And if I type it correctly, then it goes well. But if I do print, we'll leave out the beginning one. We'll try it. Syntax error, invalid syntax. Let's leave out the other one. I almost added it in just because I know it's supposed to be there. But no, the whole point is not putting it in there. Syntax error, unterminated string literal detected at line 1. So it's a syntax error, but it's a more specific error. What if you leave out both? What if you spell print wrong? Okay, print, paren, hello, comma, world. What's it going to say to that? Invalid syntax. What if I do print, hello, world without the invalid syntax? Perhaps you forgot a comma. Let's try it this way. And then it says name error, hello, world not defined. So that's kind of fun. What if you spell print? PRNT, quote, hello, comma, WORLD, PRNT. Name error, name print is not defined. Did you name print? Why, thank you, Python. Yes, I did. Okay. This kind of experiment helps you remember what you read. It also helps when you are programming because you get to know what the error messages mean. It is better to make mistakes now and on purpose than later and accidentally. 1. In a print statement, what happens if you leave out one of the parentheses or both? So here goes print, and I won't hit the parenthesis, which is actually kind of physically difficult for me to not do. Syntax error, unmatched parenthesis. Try this one. Syntax error. Wait, that was interesting. It's like giving me a chance to. It wants to give me a chance to fill in that other one. It doesn't even accept the input. That's kind of interesting. If you are trying to print a string, what happens if you leave out one of the quotation marks or both? I did that already. You can use a minus sign to make a negative number like -2. What happens if you put a plus sign before a number? What about 2 plus plus 2? Plus plus. So -3, we get -3. What about +3? We just get 3. What about plus 3? But can I just do this all day? I did not know you could do that. We're all learning something. I'm learning something. 2 plus plus 2 plus plus 2. All he asks is minus minus 3 equal 3. Let's try minus minus 3. I assume so. Yeah, we could do that all day too. We can probably do both too. Oops. That's silly. In math notation, leading zeros are okay, as in 0, 9. What happens if you try this in Python? What about 0, 1, 1? So 0, 9. Syntax error, leading zeros in decimal integer. Literals are not permitted. Use a 0, O prefix for octal integers. Interesting. What about 0, 1, 1? Syntax error, leading decimals in decimal integer. Literals are not permitted. Yep, it doesn't allow it. What happens if you have two values with no operator between them? So I assume he's talking about a space between them. So 10 and 20. Syntax error. Invalid syntax. Ali asks, what happens with minus paren minus 3 close paren? Does it work like math? Let's find out. I think it'll work that way, but it might try to make a tuple. No, there's no tuple because there's no comma. So I think it'll just be 3. Yeah, it works just like math. Okay, exercise 2. Start the Python interpreter and use it as a calculator. How many seconds are there in 42 minutes, 42 seconds? 42 minutes times 60 seconds plus 42. Boom, 2562. That's a nice number. How many miles are there in 10 kilometers? Hint, there are 1.6 kilometers in a mile. So I need to multiply by miles divided by kilometers. So 10 divided by 1.6. 1.6. 6.25. And if you run a 10-kilometer race in 42 minutes and 42 seconds, what is your average pace, time per mile in minutes and seconds? What is your average speed in miles per hour? Believe it or not, I don't think this sounds very fun right now, but I'll do it. If you run a 10-kilometer race in 42 seconds, 42 seconds, what is your average pace, time per mile in minutes and seconds? So we have 2562 seconds divided by 6.25 miles. And if I do 409.92 divided by 60, I get that number. And if I do the 0.80.832 times 60 again, I get 6 hours and 50 minutes. What is your average speed in miles per hour? We just did minutes per mile, so we can do miles per hour. That would be your miles, which is 6.25 divided by, and I think it's 60 divided by 49.9. 5.19 miles per hour. That sounds like a reasonable number of miles per hour. Okay, that was. I think I did that right. I hope so. We'll see. So that was. Oops. How do I do Control-Shift-Tab? I don't do Control-Shift-Tab apparently when I'm in this. Okay. So that's exercises. And that's chapter 1 of Think Python. Thank you so much for joining. I'll take any questions or comments that you have now before I wrap up this meeting.